listening to the Punisher Waterfowls, the Union 0430 podcast, brought to you by Real Geese Decoys, the most technological advanced silhouette decoys on the market, and Vortex Canada, the force of optics.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Union 0430. You got to understand the chat that we were just having, and that's why I'm laughing. I had to hit the record button, something that we do all the time. We have this chat before we go, before we hit the record, and it's usually the best content. So I had to stop Ryan and Dana and hit the record button because it was just too good to pass up. Welcome to episode 94. We are so lucky to have Mr. Dana. I'm going to say your last name, Dana, but I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing it right because, you know, everything is, I look at your name and I'm thinking it's French. So Lovell?
Close. Lovell.
Okay. See, if you were in Canada, that's what they would say. It would be Lovell. They totally would. They totally would. But so Dana's coming to us from I'm going to say Guilford, Maine. Am I right?
Yo.
Yeah, so I got to tell you, because Jeff put me up to this, right?
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, so Jeff Coates put me up to this, and he said it's either Guilford or Gulford, and you figure out which one you're going to say. So I was like, it's Guilford. I'm like, it's totally Guilford.
It's taken him 2 years. I'll text him and I'll do it like the sound spell. GIL-FORD, and he frigs it up every time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we've got Dana coming to us from Gulford, Maine, and we've got Ryan coming to us from Nova Scotia, and you know they're practically neighbors. Nova Scotia,
Brothers
Maine,
from another mother.
Yeah. A very long and prestigious history of the state of Maine and the province of Nova Scotia. So this is really cool, and it's only us three on tonight. Mark is getting ready to go. Mark is getting ready actually to head to Nova Scotia because Mark is moving to Nova Scotia in the summer, so Ryan and him can continue their bromance and all that stuff. Philly is working, and you know what? Phil is continuing the good work of the police force up in Toronto, so he's doing that. And Dave is on his firefighting night, so unfortunately you're just left with Ryan and I, and we get to chat with Dana, who I've been chatting with for the last couple months, and it's awesome to finally get to see you, Dana, and see your face. I see your face on posts, but to actually talk to you. And I got to say, my favorite accent in the world is that northeastern coast of America. I love that Maine Massachusetts accent. I just absolutely love it. So Dana, I know you've listened to the show. Welcome, buddy. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm flattered. I try to keep up with you guys as much as I can, and like I said, we've got a common thing with being good friends with Jeff and Karen Coates.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. So thanks for having me on. It'll be fun.
And I've got to, you know, to give you an idea of the quality of man that Dana is. About 2 months ago, he sends me a message and he goes, I'm trying to figure out a way to send you Bird Dog whiskey. And I'm like, buddy, you do not have to send me. And he's like, no, but there's more flavors that you don't even know about. He was like, I gotta get some. And I was like, buddy, you do not have, and now the border is open, so we can go across and get our own and stuff like that. I'm like, buddy, the last thing you need is ATF knocking on your door.
Well, and funny thing is, when we started talking, I believe they just had come out with the grapefruit or the pink grapefruit.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Right. So I had it
Go
all
ahead.
labeled up with Longline Decoy label and the whole deal. And I actually run the logistics department for Puritan Medical. We make the COVID test swabs.
Okay.
So I know all the ins and outs and trips to the trade, and everyone I talked to, I said, look, I'm not sending a 55-gallon drum. I'm a fifth. And all of my connections from the Postal Service to UPS, FedEx, they're like, dude, don't try that.
Yeah.
And I said, can I mark it like maple syrup or something? They're like, you can. But if you see a big black Suburban pulling your driveway,
Absolutely.
Goodbye.
That's funny because I remember back to my deployments in Afghanistan.
I was just going to say,
in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the last time my wife, at the time, I used to be on a big kick of Jameson's Irish whiskey. And so what my wife would do is she would go buy like a quart of whiskey and pour it into 7-Up bottles. And that's how she would send it to me in Afghanistan.
And it would go through?
Oh, yeah. But it was different because the Canadian Postal Service, just like same down in the States with the, what is it, Ryan? Is it APO or something? What's that? The American military, they have their own, I think it's APO or something like that.
For the Postal Service?
No, but when it gets sent from the States to a base overseas, they have their own, like it all goes through the USPS, but they have like a specific post office for the American troops or something. So
the one at the PX or whatever,
yeah. So it's the same in Canada, right? The Canada Post sort of kind of does the same thing when you're sending stuff overseas to the troops. So as long as it's not ticking and it's going to blow up, I think they sort of kind of let it go. So
the best one I saw when I was in Afghanistan was my buddy's father-in-law sent him a thing of gin, and he took a Listerine bottle and dumped all the Listerine out, refilled it with gin. And he even took the time to, like, when you when you turn the lid, all the little plastic snaps, they all break. He actually took a lighter or barbecue lighter and like re-singed them all back together. Yeah. Like basically soldered them in. So
that's
too legit.
Too legit to quit.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So so we got to keep this conversation going, boys, because it was awesome. So we're sitting here and we're just shooting the shit, waiting to hit the record button, and Dana goes, Damien, I'm glad to see the beard is growing back and stuff like this. So we're talking and stuff. And of course, Dana's like, well, I hardly ever shave it. I've only shaved it a couple times in 20 something years. And now I'm noticing creases and stuff. And Ryan's like, yeah, and I'm getting hair growing out of the top of my ears. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm getting it growing out of inside of my fucking ears and stuff like this. And here we are. The most amazing thing is that I still think I'm 21 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like, like I've got a 16-year-old daughter. She's got her girlfriends that comes by. She's got a boyfriend now. And I talk to those people like I'm 21 years old. And my daughter is just like, what are you saying? Like, you're my dad. You don't talk like this. You're not supposed. Yeah.
They walk into your house and you're trying to fist bump them. Is that what's going on, or what?
Well, not so much fist bump. I'm trying to stay relevant to what they're talking about. I can't do the music because the music is absolutely fucking horrible. It is. So like I grew, like when I'm 45 years old. So like when it comes to rap music, like Biggie and those guys, like that's who I listen to. Right. So stuff that when you heard it, you were like, yeah, man, this got a groove to it. And this stuff that my daughter's listening to, like, I'm like, how could you even, like, how does that put you in a good mood?
Here's how you know it's crap and not generational is like the stuff that my parents listened to when I was a kid. Yeah. I still like that. And I still listen to that. And you guys are probably the same. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Like CCR, all that, like all that good old stuff. Like, 100%. But now it's just like, no.
Well, so when boys, we're really on a tangent here.
Oh, this is a beauty.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will talk about waterfowl and decoys, I promise you. But like I'm trying to give my daughter some lessons, right, on music, and I'm like, the Stones, and she was like, yeah, what about them? I was like, do you know that the Rolling Stones actually started in like the late 60s? It was the late 60s, man, and they're still going. Well, Keith Richards, I'm pretty sure he's already clinically dead, and they just keep him alive somehow. But I'm like, the bands that I listen to will last forever.
Look at AC/DC.
My favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
I just watched a documentary on Netflix on AC/DC. Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But my favorite band of all time is AC/DC.
Yep. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, to this day, you can still go to a nightclub, and if they play Thunderstruck, Who Made Who, any of those, I mean, no matter what the generation is, you look around, everybody's heads bopping, feet are going.
Absolutely.
You can't say that too much about any other bands.
No, you're absolutely right. But anyways, so to get back on trying to get back like this
ear hair.
Yeah, the ear hair and you know, like things are really starting to fucking go south for me here now, body wise. Like I you know, I wake up in the morning sometimes and I'm going like you know, I consider my wife a bit of a smoke show. And I wake up in the morning sometimes and I'm going, what in the fuck is she doing with me? Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm not that good looking, like, and she's not with me for my body, that's for sure. And it's not my money. So I don't know what it is. I really don't. Things are starting to go south, boys. 45 years old. And by no means is that old, I know, but I don't know, there's some serious mileage on this body.
And I'm sure you both will agree, is I hear my father me telling my son's 24, my daughter's 27, and it's like, I'm thinking, man, you know, I sound like my father preaching to him, you know, and I'm thinking, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I'm 46, and it's like, you know, I wake up in the morning and, you know, I can barely walk. My back's killing me. I got to hobble down the stairs and get on my inversion table to straighten my back out, you know, pop some Tylenol.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to be a wreck by the time I get to retire.
Well, this is what and now my buddy, Bill Kennedy, like, so Billy I think Billy is 61 or 62 years old. And I'm telling you, like, this man is in peak shape. Like he had a heart surgery done last year, like last summer, or last fall, I think, or something like that. Or maybe it was late winter. Anyways, they done a heart surgery on him. Like, the fucking guy was knocked back, like he couldn't move, like he couldn't even walk up, like leave his living room and walk up the stairs to his bedroom without being winded and everything. And now, last week he went and done a stress test with the doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, you're good. He's on the treadmill, and he looked at the doctor. He's like, I'm getting bored. And they was like, well, yeah, like get off, I guess. And he was just like, yeah, this is nothing. And meanwhile, here I am, like a slug trying to get around and clean up some trees and stuff around the property, and I'm just sucking wind out of my asshole to try in order to get it done, right?
Oh, you're not alone. Oh man, it's awful.
And then, so Ryan, and now you're on your way out of the military, and now, because listen, I will be the first person to say that in the military, there's times where you're called upon and you're doing some pretty crazy hard work and some pretty demanding situations. But there are some times where it's a pretty good gig to get paid the kind of money and really not do too much, or at least it was for me in my trade. There was days when I didn't really do a whole lot. And now, like, you're out, like you're doing manual work now. Yeah,
I went from I worked my way up the ranks, got a pretty good, leadership position and charge people, administrative, flew a desk, and now it's like into the labor force at 39 and like into the solar energy sector. And I'm at the bottom trying to work my way back up to the top to get to that nice little position again. But yeah, I still feel good. I'm still like you guys. Like I don't feel my age at all, right. But it is what it is.
And your son, like Nate, how old is Nate? Like 6?
He just turned 6 in April. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would keep you pretty young too, right? Like,
he does. I mean, he also ages me at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. Dana, buddy, it's taken us, I don't know how long, what have we been 20 minutes into this, and we haven't even talked about decoys yet. So, like I wanted to talk to you about the decoys, and we've been chatting back and forth and stuff. And then, last week, I don't think Jeff knew that you and I chatted, because I don't think so, because he sent the text and he was like, Damien, I want you to meet Dana. And I was like, yeah, we meet and we've talked and chatted and stuff like that. So, and that's when I was like, man, I gotta get Dana on the show, because it's time to get him on. And a lot of the reasons, so I guess twofold. The fact that you're a friend of Jeff's tells me a lot about the type of person that you are, because I know the type of people that Jeff considers his close friends. So that was, something I was like, well, if he's a buddy of Jeff's, then he's good. But then, way back when I started looking at your decoys and stuff like that, and I just thought, there's all these people, and I am 100%, and I've said it on this show, I am not 100% sold on decoys that are flocked and these ridiculously expensive decoys with all this fucking detail to them and stuff like that. And when I looked at yours, I was like, see, that's all you need. And you're coming from a part of North America where sea duck hunting is as much ingrained into the fiber of that part of the world as it is in Arkansas. And right. So, and I look at your decoys and I'm like, see, simple. It's simple. It's got the colors. It looks like the shape of a duck, but it doesn't have to be anything flashy or anything like that. So I really, really liked it. You know what I mean? So now what I didn't realize was that you make them out of lobster trap buoys, which is really cool, because I grew up with my grandfather fishing lobster fishing. So that's the sort of thing, like it's cool to me, because it's a part of something that I grew up being part of. So I guess what I'm getting at is I really wanted to pick your brain on, with all the pressure of everybody producing this high quality flocked painting scheme that's ridiculous, and you're making them out of lobster pot buoys, and you're making good decoys. They look good and they work.
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for the compliments, but I've had, of course, you're going to get it with everyone, in anything you do, negativity and people commenting. I didn't invent this. These have been around for 100 years, but this is the first one I ever saw. It is as crude as crude can be. And a friend of mine, who actually is my taxidermist, sent me up a bag of decoys. He's like, hey, if you can use any of these, use them. If not, heave them. So they were all, old plastic carry light decoys. And I think I threw away most of them. But I came across this old squaw. And I'm thinking, what in fuck is that? And then I got looking and I said, the more I looked at it and I was intrigued by it, and then I put it in water and saw how buoyant it was and how it went with the water. It was amazing. So I said, I'm fairly artistic. I'm no Van Gogh, but I thought I can one up this. I really, truly think I can. So one thing led to another, and a lot of trials and tribulation and error, and and that this is probably the one I'm probably most proud of.
That's nice.
And I've actually had a couple outfitters in Alaska reach out to me and wanted me to do a bunch of Harlequin. This is the only Harlequin I've ever done and will be the only Harlequin that I ever do. It was way too much detail, way too much time. I mean, I would need to get a couple $100 a piece.
Yeah.
For these,
yeah, in order to make it worth your while.
Right. I mean, I've got, I've got so much time, and I try not to make them too detailed because, as you know, with sea ducks or divers, in my personal opinion, and this is my opinion, they're not coming into the detail. They're coming, you've heard of guys using old Clorox bottles.
Mm-hmm.
White Clorox bottles for eiders, put a little squirt of black spray paint on one side or the other and throw them out and they'll decoy.
Yeah.
Goldeneye will do the same things. So, so I started dabbling in doing some sea ducks and eiders and even old squat to me. I've done a couple. I've got a dozen or so that my son and I use. But again, it takes too much time, and to be able to sell them to people, I would just need to get an astronomical amount of money to make it worth my time. But right now in this crazy go Brandon world, lobster buoys.
Yeah.
There's a nationwide shortage of the resin.
So here's one for you, not to get you off topic here, but I really want. So I'm talking to Craig Mintz from Real Geese Decoys. No cardboard. You can't get fucking cardboard.
Unbelievable. I buy all my buoys from a place in New Hampshire, a distributor down there. They're probably one of the biggest in New England. And I use a certain type of buoy. It's an 8.5 by 15, but as you can see, can you see the holes? Mm-hmm. So to me, it's the size of the buoy. Obviously, you want the bigger the body mass, as much white or black, on the water as you can get, in the buoyancy. And two, a lot of times I will make a long line and leave it connected to the boat. Because a lot of the places where we hunt, if lobster boats are coming through, you don't want to have 2 or 3 sets of long lines in their way because they're not going to stop. And I don't blame them. They've got a job to do. So believe it or not, those little holes do help when you're towing. The water will flow through them and come out the back.
Really?
But, so this particular style buoy and many others, the resin that they use to make those in 3 plants in Texas, there's a nationwide shortage. They can't get it. So I haven't gotten buoys for, 4 months.
Wow.
And I'm on a waiting list. And she said, Dana, think how these poor lobstermen are doing. They're trying to survive and make a living. They're out having to scrounge around and use buoys that they really don't want to use, that aren't big enough, or buying used ones and trying to fix them and patch them up. And it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Wow.
So needless to say, my productivity on decoys in the last 3 months has been pretty slow. I've got two groups of mallards that I'm sending down to Arkansas, and after that, I don't know when I'm going to get buoys again. So we'll see.
Crazy, and I don't want to go on this huge political rant, but Canada and the United States, two of the what I consider two of the most developed countries in the world. Now, Europe is, but two of the most developed countries in the world, and we are absolutely crippled on supply and demand because of overseas logistics, right? It's absolutely mind-boggling that we're in this state, in the position that we're in. I'm talking to, without saying names, but talking to people that are in this waterfowling world and who gets their stuff come in on shipping containers from China. They have no idea, no idea when anything is going to show up. They don't know what's going to show up. I know. Yeah, it's wild, man. Just absolutely wild. And I laughed when I heard about a shortage of cardboard and now resin for lobster pot buoys.
Yeah.
Like
It's crazy. Unbelievable.
Like it's 2022.
Yeah. Where does it end?
Yeah, like I read a report that I just read a report before you guys jumped on that the Dow is down, Walmart, Target is the most loss in shares in the last decade happened today, and like this is Walmart and Target.
Yeah.
Like name a store in North America that has more visitors than Walmart and Target. And their stock is down. Like, Jesus Christ, like this is getting crazy.
Don't check your 401k.
Well, yeah. Oh. Well, we don't.
Yeah. Man, I just cashed out. I just got my pension. And in December it was worth over 400K. And now it's sub 300. So it went down 100K.
Seriously?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh,
that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah,
that is a hard.
$100,000 since Christmas.
Holy smokes, dude!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That is crazy. Okay. So, yeah. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I know you.
I'll segue in. I'll segue in and say it cuts into my decoy fund. So there.
Yeah. There you go. I really wanted to say because So Jeff had messaged me earlier today, and he said, "I hope you guys have a good show tonight." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it'll be awesome." And he was like, "Make sure you say hi to Dana for me." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I will," and stuff like that. He said, "I give Dana the credit for the Foamzillas." He said, because that's where I got the idea for the Foamzillas was from Dana. So like. There is something to be said, Dana, about this idea of simplicity, right? Like, and in the Army, we always used to say we'll apply the KISS rule to everything, keep it simple, stupid. And that's what you're doing. You're keeping it simple. I get it that you don't have the resin, but it's simple and it friggin' works. Like, what more do you want?
And I've had people that have reached out to me multiple times and asked, how much are they? And I tell them and whatnot. And I never hear another peep. I can see on Instagram that they've read it, and that's it. And that's fine. I mean, anybody who makes anything by hand, I mean, your time is priceless. And,
right.
I take pride in my stuff. And, if you don't want to pay it, that's fine. I get it. But I'm more than willing to point people in the right direction if they want to make their own. I mean, I can, give them tips that have taken me months, if not years, to come down with. Like you probably can't see it, but the epoxy that holds the keel in, trying to find something that isn't affected by salt water. I mean, I don't know how many times I'd pick the decoy up and the keel would be gone. I think, well, that's a good selling point. I guess I'm,
back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. But I finally found an epoxy that you can buy right at your local hardware store. It's liquid nails, polyurethane.
Yeah.
Only liquid nails, polyurethane. Any other liquid nails, for some reason, it will not completely harden.
Okay, go for it, Ryan.
Yeah. Next to like the Bering Sea, like Alaska and all that, where guys are hunting harlequin and kings and stuff. As far as a waterfowl is concerned, there's no conditions harder. Like the Atlantic Ocean is second place. Like there's nothing. It's a 2-horse race in my opinion, as far as conditions and weather and just stuff changing on conditions changing on a dime.
Absolutely.
So what kind of things are you factoring in for longevity when you're just designing a decoy, like paint? Because like salt water is completely different than fresh water. Having waves come on top of your decoys. What kind of things are you considering if you're building a decoy for ocean waterfowl?
That's still to be determined, believe it or not. I use an acrylic paint. Now Jeff uses, I believe, like some type of special oil based. But I've had really good luck with this acrylic, and it's made by Liquitex. And so far, I think I've had 3 sets of Eider decoys. I think this will be going on the 4th year. And knock on wood, the paint has held up excellent. I mean, there is, spots in some of the, where it's rubbed up against rocks and barnacles have taken the paint off, but from the water itself, it's held up really well. So that's kind of been a work in progress, but obviously the buoys, the foam itself, I mean, lobster buoys will last would last you and outlast you and I. I do make these heads and it's just a simple 1/4-20 eye bolt that goes in the bottom. In the bottom of the head, I should have grabbed another head. It's got a threaded insert that goes up in the head, so you can adjust the placement of the head. Or if for some reason you've got a guy in your boat that can't shoot worth a shit and the head gets blown off or takes a beating over the years, you can interchange the heads. So that's kind of been a bonus. The keel took me forever to figure out what I could use for a keel that was somewhat lightweight, but yet was heavy enough. For the most part, they will upright themselves. Composite decking.
Well, so right there, that stuff is nice and cheap to buy, eh? Composite decking. Oh.
Yeah. No, so luckily I've got a few contractor buddies, and they always have a bunch of ends.
Yeah.
So I'll come home from work, and there'll be a pile of ends sitting at the end of my driveway, and so it works out perfect. But yeah, I mean, they're not for everybody, but those buoys will take a hell of a beating. I mean, a couple years ago, I put one in the pond behind my house, and I shot it with my 10 gauge at probably 10 feet just to see what it would do. And I bet it sucked up 80% of the pellets.
Is that right?
There were some that came out the other side, but the great thing with that is that it's not going to sink it. And at the end of the season, Jeff does it too. I use another Liquid Nails product. It almost comes in like a toothpaste container, and you just scuff up the buoy and use your thumb, go over all the holes, let it dry overnight, give it a fresh coat of paint, and you're good to go.
What's the most common damage you see for like sea decoys? Is it surf related? Is it just shot related? Like what's the most?
I personally would say shot related.
Yeah.
Especially if you like where Jeff hunts, we get waves. Jeff gets just the rollers. Have pretty good sea legs, but boy, 2 years ago I went out with him, and about 2 hours in, I was hurting. I wish I'd have taken a whole box of Dramamine. Man,
really?
Just you sit there and you go down, and all you see is water. You come back up on top of the wave, and you can see, Ocean City and all the decoys and everything else. And then you go down so imagine trying to sit in that boat. I don't care if it's the world's largest duck boat or not. You're sitting in that boat and you're doing this, and and you've got birds flying by.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a blast. It really is. But yeah.
I always laugh, like you watch them, like when the season's on the go, and Jeff is, he's taking the video of the hunt, and he was like, lead them. Yeah, you can lead them, but there's nothing that's talking about the deflection that's going up and down, because now I'm not a big sea duck hunter. I've never, I've done it in Newfoundland, but not to the extent that you guys do it. Like, you've got to be a pretty seasoned, good shot when those rollers are coming in and picking off those birds that are coming in at mock chicken, because we all know how fast. First off, we know how fast divers are. We know how tough divers are. And now you got the rolling Atlantic Ocean on top of it.
Yeah. It's insane. And I can, when you watch Jeff's videos, you hear him laughing all the time. Well, you can't help but laugh on that boat. And another thing, if you don't have thick skin, you should not be going out there because you were going to take.
Yeah.
But no, it's an
Yeah,
experience.
if you don't have thick skin, Jeff is going to have to do a double order of crabs to go for you to try and prop you up.
Well, that doesn't sound that bad.
I'm not. See, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not a big shellfish guy, right? Like you guys, are like, oh, we go down with Jeff. We're going to crabs to go, and I'm like, well, I could really care less about the shellfish, but to get my hands on some actual fish, that would be my thing, but shellfish, not so much.
Yeah, no, we went to crabs to go. One of the days we were down there, and John, the owner, who's a wicked hot shit. I became really good friends with him. I'd never had crab cakes before, believe it or not. Living in Maine, we don't have a lot of crab. It's mostly lobster, clams.
Yeah.
And said, you got to try a crab cake. That was one of the best damn things I've ever had.
Really,
Phenomenal. It was, yeah.
Maybe maybe I would like a crab cake because it's not just all crab, right? Like shellfish is just so rich to me. Like I like lobster, but I can eat two claws and maybe a bit of a tail. And then I'm like, yep, I'm done. Meanwhile, my dad takes his shirt off when he sits down at the he got his big knife and his cutting board in front of him and mom's bread pan full of lobsters, and it's just fucking ripping and
they're like, sir, this is a red lobster. You need to put the shirt on.
Yeah. So like, I'm not so bad as what my dad is, but yeah. I actually, when we went to PEI last year, so Karen, obviously Jeff and Karen were there, and we had went to this fish store, and the boys were buying scallops and all of this stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, have at it, go nuts. And I was telling the shop owner that I was from Newfoundland, and he was like, oh, did you want some fish cakes? So fish cakes to me is one of the best things in the entire world. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to have some fish cakes, not really expecting, a great fish cake. So anyways, we come back and I make them, and I said, Karen, you got to try this, because Karen had caught a tuna a couple days before, and it was really the first time that I had eaten fresh tuna. Which fucking unbelievable how good that was. And I said to Karen, I said, you got to try this fish cake, probably one of the best fish cakes I've had. And it's so good. And Karen was like, oh my God, that is good. And I was like, right? I was like, doesn't touch your fresh tuna, but it is pretty good. So another tangent. Sorry, guys.
But what you were starting to say about the Foamzillas, I'd always followed and watched Jeff on TV, and just kind of always idolized him. I just always had so much respect for what he does, and knowing that that's his profession, and what he's gone from to what he's made it to now. And so when I first came up, when I made one of my first surf scooter decoys, I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to try. I'm just going to send it to him and see what happens. Yeah. And he did send me a thank you, and kind of some time went by, and then all of a sudden he does this post on Instagram, and he's thanking me for it. And he's all about building this new type of decoy, kind of using similar to what I've done, but maybe just a little bit different. And one thing led to another. And like I said, now he and I are great friends, and I've been down hunting with him, and but it's amazing that the first hunt when I went down there with him, it was pretty cool. I was pretty flattered. We had my Longline Decoys on one side and had his surf scooters on the other.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. But mine looked good, and like I said, they did their job. But his design of his Foamzillas, the way the body is to make them that much more larger and more visible, with the way the water goes down there, they do work a lot better than mine would. They stick out. They're much more vibrant's not the word, but they're definitely more noticeable. And I think that the birds can pick them out from a lot longer distance.
Well, and from what I know, and Ryan, you can chime in on this too, because and Dana, you know it as well, but geographical location, like what works in one place doesn't work in another place, right? So like,
Absolutely.
so like what you're doing in Maine works. What your work may not work in Maryland. What I'm doing in Ontario is not going to work in Nova Scotia, right? So I wouldn't sell myself short if I was you, buddy. It's geographical, and the birds, like I've always said that we give a lot of credit to the birds because they have a brain the size of a pea. And I say that, but at the same time, I realize 100% that in their geographical area, they know what's right and they know what's wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, agreed. So Damien, can you move one side or the other? So I'm thinking probably where that bottle of bird dog is, if we slid that over, we should have room for a long line decoy. I'm guessing right in there somewhere.
Ooh, buddy, that would be, now, do not feel obligated to do that, but that would be, that actually, you know what, Dana, because I've got a pit boss flag that Jeff gave me that I was thinking about putting right there, sort of kind of like do it on an angle. So you know what? If I got one, I would probably make another little shelf right there and put your decoy right on the wall. Not on this here because I block it, right? Like,
yeah, you do. I didn't want to steal all your thunder.
But I would block, like if you were to put it, you know, right there where that bird dog is, like people wouldn't see it. So we'd have to figure out a way to make sure that it gets noticed, because ultimately that's like, and that's the thing, right? Like people, and I know you brought it up, like people will message you and they'll say, well, how much for a dozen decoys and stuff. And I had asked Jeff one time, because to me, it's cool to be able to say, I'm hunting over decoys that a friend made. And as we're talking, our good Ryan and mine's good friend Brendan Veerman, he's carving decoys now. Brendan is extremely OCD, and it takes him a month to do one. His paint is perfect, everything is perfect, right? Like that's the type of guy he is. But now he's not selling them; he's making them for himself. He wants to be able to hunt over his own decoys and stuff like that, right? Which is amazing. But when you say, you know, people will contact you and ask you how much, you know, it is for a dozen decoys or half a dozen decoys or one decoy, whatever it is, part of the lure to buying like a handmade decoy is the fact that you could say, listen, this didn't come out of a mold and it didn't come from overseas. This is a friend of mine made this. And that's what I look at. Like when we went to PEI and I hunted over Jeff Coates and Geoff, when I hunted over their decoys, like that was cool to be able to say that I was hunting over a friend of mine's handmade decoys. Like I picked them up, the keel and the lines, and like it was just really, really cool. And we've talked about this and we've had guests on time and time again, Ryan, and I know you've talked about it because you and your dad, especially your dad, because your dad is beyond, like Ryan's dad has gone beyond shooting birds. He shot enough birds. Right. Now it's always about that special moment on a hunt, right? So to be able to say, listen, well, you know what? We didn't limit out, but I had a dozen of handmade decoys made by a friend, and that's what I hunted over. Like those are the special moments.
Oh yeah,
sure.
And as someone who makes decoys, there's nothing more satisfying and gratifying, and just a lot of times I catch myself not shooting because
Yeah.
I'm watching these, majestic birds that I'm fooling, to come in and land in my decoys. And it's like, that's pretty fucking badass, and like my son's like, oh, shoot the sons of bitches, Yeah.
That, buddy, there was a little bit of newfie in that one right there when you said
Oh,
that.
there was.
Shoot the sons of bitches.
Dana, what decoys are you making? Are you making so you just make strictly sea ducks? So you're making like the 3 scoters, the longtail and eider, or are you making puddle ducks too?
I always swore I wouldn't do puddle ducks only because there's more detail.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, it's just not rocket science, more detail, more time, trying to get them all as uniform as you can. It's not worth my time and effort. So I do eider, scoter, all 3 scoters. Old squaw are about the limit because there are a fair amount of detail to make them look, right on the water. Goldeneye, lesser, greater scaup, blue ringneck.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm forgetting. Like I said, I'm working on 24 mallards for busted duck down in Arkansas.
Right.
He and his head guide Brett, they've been so kind they're just all about my decoys, and they're going to give them a whirl this fall and see how they work. So I'll be anxious to see how they hold up.
And you hunted with those guys. Like Jeff was supposed to make it too, right? Like you and
Yep.
Jeff were going to go down and do a hunt with busted duck, and
Yep.
Jeff's light and everything got all fucking
what
wonky and stuff like. But
Yeah.
but the mallard decoy, like you produced that a while ago, right? Like you've built a mallard decoy. Like this isn't the first time that you've done a mallard decoy. You've done it in the past, and you've used it, right?
No, this is the mallard. I started one shortly thereafter I got back from
Oh, is that
Arkansas.
right? Okay, because and the only reason why I'm saying that is because I was looking on Instagram and I seen but maybe I just didn't pay attention to the date.
Yeah,
when
because
seen
they busted my ass enough, and I probably had enough to drink that they talked me into trying them. And believe it or not, they really weren't that bad to make. But I don't want to get any more detailed than that.
Well, but they look good because I looked at the picture. So you're using the lobster pot buoys, but then what are you do? So like the heads, because the heads look amazing. Like the heads look very detailed. The body is basic, and I'm not trying to downplay what you're doing.
Yeah.
The body is basic, but the head looks amazing. Like if you pull up one of your mallard decoys and then compare it to that longtail, that very first longtail that you had, there's a big difference in the head.
Yeah. The heads I get from a guy I met online. He's up in Minnesota, and he's got a wood duplicator. I don't know if you've ever seen one.
No, never heard of it.
I started doing my own heads, and just they were crude, they were rough, but I mean, they still look good and still would work. But like I said, long story short, I met this guy, and he's like, I said, what do you charge for those heads? Rough, $5 a piece with eyes. I'm thinking, that's a no-brainer. So he does send me the heads, and they're species specific, but I do have to do quite a bit of handwork with a Dremel and to, make them look a little more proportionate, or change the angle of the head, or go from a feeding to a dabbling to a resting or whatnot. But yeah, that was a no-brainer for that money.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So when did you make this post? Sorry, Ryan, you can because I'm looking at that mallard right now.
I think that's the cool thing about sea duck decoys, because mostly in your puddler or your field sets, it's more about a fashion show. It's trying to get your Dave Smiths. You're trying to get as most lifelike as possible, and you're coming up with different ways to, create longevity in the decoy, whether it's bags or individually bagging, whatever. But in the sea duck, in the sea duck world, what works has stood the test of time. You don't have to have, the prettiest decoy on the market, but you got to have something that at least replicates the species you're hunting in this color scheme, but it's got to be built to last. And that's probably your number one priority when you're building those decoys, right?
Absolutely. And fortunate enough that I've been, sea duck hunting for 20 years, and I know how much of a beating these things take. And luckily enough, there's only a couple, I think Carry Light and maybe GHG make eider decoys, and the GHG ones actually look really, really nice, and they're very lifelike. But again, they're, $80-$90 for 4, and you shoot them a couple times and the paint chips off, and it just I was almost challenged by that. I said, I can make a better decoy with using the lobster buoys, and I definitely recommend everyone that buys them off me. I said, I know it sucks, but spend the money and buy the individual slotted bags, because again, it's not rocket science. You take 2 hand painted decoys and rub them together while they're in the back of your truck. The paint's gonna go away, and there's no doubt. But and Jeff does that all with his 2 Foamzillas. He's got them all in individual, pocketed bags, which they do save the life and the paint of the decoy.
Well, how many times have you heard it, especially with a waterfowl hunter, a duck hunter? Have you heard someone say, spend once, cry once? Spend the money. Spend the money like that. That's the thing that I sort of kind of always couldn't get my head wrapped around, is why would you buy an inferior product when next year you're going to have to go to replace it? Do you know what and I say that, and I know some, people just don't have premium dollar to spend on stuff, but in the long run, you're better off just buying the proper thing in the beginning. And if that means you have to delay your purchase, then delay your purchase.
Any guy that's going to go out and spend $400 for 6 Avian X full body goose decoys, and they can't spend the $80-$90 or $100 for a slotted bag.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I have this argument all the time, especially like I really, and I know I'll get a bunch of messages next week on Tuesday or Monday and Tuesday when this comes out, but I really cannot buy into the flocking. Like it just doesn't make sense to me to pay the extra money, and I'm hard on gear. I don't baby my stuff. I throw it around. I'm the extra amount of attention I had to put into things. I just don't see it. And if you're the type of person where you don't mind doing that, then great, good for you. I wish I had your patience, really, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. I'm just not patient enough to do all the care that it comes with it. But I just can't. And with that kind of decoy comes a premium dollar as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I tell people too, I said, hunting over my decoys or any handmade decoys, I said, it's not like hunting over your greenhead gear.
That's right.
$79.95 for a dozen mallards, because I said, if you treat these decoys like you do those, you're going to not even get a season out of them.
That's right. Yeah.
And as long as people understand that, it is. And the people that are interested in buying a hand carved decoy from anybody, they know what they're getting for the most part. They know that they take special care, and most years you're going to have to do maybe a little touching up to them to spruce them back up. But yeah, it's
I've said it a few times that, like I asked Jeff about a dozen decoys, and there is some sticker shock there, right? Just the same as with you, Dana, because it takes time to do it, and there's all these little things. You're using composite wood for the keel, and you got a special kind of paint, and you've had so many experiments with epoxy to try and find what's going to hold. So all of that adds up, right? I've like when I reached out to Jeff and I was like, I want some, handmade decoys. My idea was opening day every year. I want to be able to hunt over handmade decoys. That's it. The rest of the year, I'll use my decoys, beat the shit out of them, throw them around. They get shot up. I go fucking buy some more, whatever. And again, it comes down to that experience. It comes down to having somebody like, how amazing would it be to have somebody that on their very first hunt, their very first time being introduced to waterfowl hunting, and you can tell a story about the spread of birds, of decoys that are in front of you, to say, listen, my friend Dana in Maine made these. This is what they're made out of, but it's only one hunt out of the year. Like that's the experience. That's the stuff that fellas, I think people like us, I say fellas, but people like us, I think that's where we're at in our duck hunting career right now, is now you're trying to build that experience. It's not always just smashing limits. It's to be able to tell a story, and everybody lives by Instagram and social media now, and to just put up a picture of a limit of ducks, you know what, lots of people put up pictures of limits of ducks. But nobody had, and I shouldn't say nobody, but there's very few people that have a story to go with the pictures.
Right. And that's what I try to instill into my son, because he's, I think, finally gotten to the point where I think he believes in my decoys, because he's tried it with some other friends of mine that have bought him. Said, I purposely ran a string of your eider decoys and GHGs, and I don't, maybe it was shit luck, but they all seem to head towards yours. I don't, like, again, I don't know if my son, I don't know if my son finally bought into it, but so when he goes out and hunts, and I've created a monster with him, hunting. But I always tell him, how was the hunt? Did you guys do good? Yeah. I don't care how many you shot. I want to know, have you got any pictures with the birds with my decoys?
Yeah.
Or it's gratifying for me to see somebody that has made a memory with hunting over my decoys.
Oh, that has to be a huge feather in your hat.
It is. And actually, Ryan, do you know Trevor Oakley? He owns Sea Dog Outfitters.
No, I don't. Is he in New Brunswick or is he in Nova Scotia?
Nova Scotia.
Oh, no. Yarmouth?
Yeah, good question. He's probably going to kill me saying, you don't know where the fuck I live. Yeah. He's got and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, he's got a dozen of my eider decoys, and he was going to do it last year. He was going to run, he's got some other older handmade eiders that he uses, and he was going to run mine, but he said the seas this year up there were just absolutely brutal.
Yeah. We had actually, Nova Scotia's pretty easy climate in the winter, but this year we had a true winter, and usually at Christmas time is I do more puddle duck hunting than I do sea duck. Really, I haven't sea duck hunted really much at all, but the Christmas time is usually like the end all be all for waterfowl hunting. Is usually at its peak, but man, like a week before Christmas, we were froze up. It was cold. It was nasty, and so I mean, I would definitely believe that the ocean was equal to the rest of the weather and just was crap.
Yeah, no, he said that, he's born and raised up there, and he said, I've never seen the ocean the way it was. And he actually never was able to hunt over any of my decoys. He said, I think he had to cancel several guided hunts because he said the weather and the seas were so bad. He said he'd never seen them like that.
It's crazy because the weather pattern, you can debate all you want, but the weather patterns are changing big time. Anything coming up the Eastern Seaboard now, like
Absolutely.
it's not the same, right? It's not the same as what it was. Like I still talk to my mom and dad every day in Newfoundland, and I've heard my dad say, now by the time those storms make it to Newfoundland, they've dissipated. Usually they've dissipated a bit by the time they make it to Newfoundland. But I've heard my dad say, he was like, man, it like southwest wind. He said, it's been killer for months and months and months, just crazy southwest wind. So, you know, like there's something to be said about it. And when you got a guy that's, you know, born and raised and is making his living off the ocean, when he says, no, things aren't, something's not right here, you best be paying attention to what he's saying, because he knows more than anybody.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, as you guys both know, you know, will say, geez, can you take me out to sea duck hunting? I said, oh, well, what days can you go? Because we got to look at the calendar.
Yeah.
You know, because depending on where you are in Maine, like down in the Freeport area where LL Bean is, you've got to go by the tidal chart. You've got, you've got a 3-hour window. If you don't get in and out in that 3-hour window, hope you didn't have plans for the rest of the day.
Really? See, and that's something, you know, and this comes back to this whole, you know, when you're talking to your friends and they're using your decoys and they're working. So let's say, you know, you got a line of brand X ran out, and then you have a line of yours. The geographical area and the birds, they know what the fuck is up. Like they do, they know what's going on. So, you know, that North Atlantic and the play on what you were saying, Ryan, where, you know, it's second only to that Alaskan Sea. Like if you don't have your wits about you, the Chesapeake, the you know, off Maine and that North Atlantic, you know, you're not going into a little pond here and trying to chase some mallards. This is nasty stuff. And like I talked to Jeff about, and I grew up on the water in Newfoundland. I grew up fishing with my grandfather and stuff like that. And when I talked to Jeff, and Jeff's a captain and he's done all the courses and he's got that designation, the thought process that goes into him deciding on if he's going out on the water on a given day. When he says, I'm not going, you best not be going out on the water. And I'm sure that's the same way with you, Dana. Like Absolutely. when you say, you know what, yeah, we're not doing it today, you best be paying attention.
Yeah. And we don't go, I mean, the furthest we may go offshore is a couple miles, which sounds like a long ways. But I mean, I know a lot of these outfitters that will go out 6-7 miles. And yes, the hunting is better. But again, if you don't have the boat or the equipment or the knowledge and know-how, it's nowhere to be.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Because that ocean, there's no forgiveness whatsoever with that.
No. Yeah. It's bad enough in the middle of August, let alone in December.
Yeah, when it's hypothermic, soon as you hit the water, right? That's all. Boys, I just looked at the time and we're over 60 minutes. So Jesus, we could go for a long time on this, eh? So you know what that means, Dana? You're just going to have to come back again.
Anytime.
Yeah, buddy. This was awesome, buddy. I love it. This is a really, really good show. I really like it. From talking about ear hair all the way up to special epoxy. We've touched on everything tonight. So Dana, buddy, yeah.
No, real quick, I'll send you pictures. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks. The decals are all made, so the trailer's being done.
Oh, I can't wait. I was telling Ryan about it before you come on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was telling Ryan all about it, and I was like, buddy, like, it cost me way more money to send you here. Take the vector files and do it. Just send me a picture when it's done. So I was telling Ryan all about it before you come on. So and to be honest with you, Dana, I'm fairly honored to say that you reached out and you wanted to put the Punisher logo on your trailer and push it all around Maine on your travels. It really means a lot to me that
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Ryan, buddy, to you.
Great to meet you, Dana. We don't get too many East Coast guests
No.
on here, so this is a treat, especially with two other East Coasters. Although north of the border, it's all the same. We're all cut from the same cloth. So, best of luck to you this season, man, and hope your business hopefully get that shortage figured out for you quick and get back to doing what you love to do, man. So, all the best and cheers.
Yes, likewise. Nice meeting you as well, and hopefully we'll be able to meet in person sometime.
Definitely.
That would be amazing, eh? Dana, to you, buddy.
Thanks, Damien.
Buddy, you are welcome. Like, I'm still to this day, I'm blown away every time that I reach out to somebody and I ask them if they'd want to come on the show and be able to just shoot the shit with us and chat and you're no different, Dana. You're like, yes, I'd love to come on. I'd love to be able to chat with you guys. I'd love to be able to chat and tell stories and stuff. And it means the world to me, buddy. It really do. And like Ryan said, not to take anything away from any other past guests or anybody that's been on this show, but to be able to have somebody on from the East Coast and have that salt water blowing on your face, it means the world to me. And it's something common that I have, that Ryan and I and Merck that we have with you. And I can't thank you enough for coming on, buddy. And I look forward to you coming on again. I really, really do.
My pleasure. Anytime. We'll have to get Jeff on here one night too.
Well, so I said to him, I was like, hey, did you want to come on? He was like, absolutely not. I'm not stealing Dana's thunder. Dana gets the show tonight. I'm not coming on. And he was like, you guys and Dana will do it tonight. I was like, yep, that's fair. Sounds good. But we will get you two on because I got a feeling there's some pretty good banter that to go back and forth.
It's all good.
Yeah, I bet. Ladies and gentlemen, this was episode 94 of the Union 0430. If you haven't figured it out yet, we are as advertised. We do not pretend to be anybody that we're not. We're just a group of friends that love talking about hunting birds and meeting the people that we meet. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel, our podcast, and thanks so much. Big love. Until next week. Ciao.